Everybody, welcome to the Sunday night live stream. This is the Living Vertical channel. I'm Steve Richert. I'm an adventure photographer and filmmaker, and this channel is all about encouraging you to own your story, get out there with the camera, and have fun doing it. And this is kind of a weird occasion for me because I've been spending the last couple of days having some deep thoughts about kind of where I'm going with this channel and what is happening. So I want to share a little bit of that with you guys tonight, get some of your feedback, share some of my meditations about kind of what's happening. Good evening, Brian, King Yuzi. Good to see you guys in here. So yeah, I've been, trying to figure out how to get my YouTube channel back on track. And I accidentally wound up experiencing a certain amount of success by talking about cameras, and I do love cameras. Don't get me wrong. I know that's how a lot of us have found each other here on this channel. But at the end of the day, my purpose with Living Vertical has never really been to discuss gear, never really been to just focus on that and talk about the technical components of photography as much as it has been to really focus on the importance of storytelling and to be able to share my stories and really just have a creative outlet to explore the things in my life that are interesting. And last week I made a video about kind of whether or not it makes sense to start a new channel or whether it would make more sense to pivot the channel that I have here and try to ask you guys who are subscribed to come on that journey with me. And it's funny because I think that a lot of what I have pitched originally in the channel is really what I'm trying to get back to, but I've been a victim of my own success, relatively speaking, because I've kind of gotten used to making videos about cameras, and now it's like trying to shift gears is hard, and it's really hard narrowing down what you want to say and being deliberate about the message and what you want your channel to stand for. That's a really challenging thing. So I've been working through that the last couple of days, and honestly, it has been more than a little bit difficult. I've gone through a lot of coffee and sat around with several blank pieces of paper. And of course, I've been watching some videos from other YouTubers talking about how they went from like 2,000 subscribers to over 200,000 subscribers in a year. And I'm scratching my head thinking, wow, how does that work? Because I'm really in a fortunate position, relatively speaking. I have almost 7,500 subscribers, and I feel like, if somebody can go from 2,000 subscribers, say, to 300,000, that's a huge jump to make in a year. I feel like I needed to set some goals. So I did a couple of things, and I want to share them. I want to share them with you. And of course, I left the paper that I had written this stuff down on in the other room, but I can remember it because there's really four goals that I specifically set for myself. And I guess it's a little bit late to be setting goals for 2018, but I didn't really have any goals for my YouTube channel this year until just very recently, and it took me, kind of feeling a little bit uncomfortable, getting to that point where I didn't feel like what I was doing was really sustainable or like it was working, because I enjoy talking about cameras, but ultimately I knew that, and I've said this many times, that the camera review stuff, it has to come to an end at some point, because I can't continue talking indefinitely about cameras. That's not really my goal. I could only talk about cameras until I reach the point where I have myself situated with cameras, and then it's like, now what? So getting to that point has been a relief from a technical standpoint, because now I'm set up with a camera that I'm happy with, and that I've also been able to become a little bit more realistic about what my needs are with the camera, and that helps kind of get rid of some of the gear acquisition syndrome. But now it's kind of like, all right, now what? And my goals for 2018 really are I would like to break 10,000 subscribers, and I would like to reach over 2 million views on this channel. And I'm close to reaching 1 million views, and I've done that. I'm like 934, 940 something thousand views on this channel, and I've done that in about a year and change. And then the other two goals that I have are much less specific than subscribers or views. The other two goals that I have are a little bit more diffuse, and this is what I've been discussing. Good evening, Daniel. Good to see you checking in there. Um, I wanna pivot the channel towards content that I am proud of, stuff that I can look back at and really hang my hat on and be proud of. And then the other thing is I want to make videos that are valuable. And I know that these are two things that could be defined in a lot of different ways, and I don't know that I have the answers all like right in front of me to be able to say, you know, this is what the kind of work that I would be proud of, and these are the type of videos that are valuable. And really what it is, it's, really kind of two halves, or the same coin maybe, but two different sides to it. One is saying that I want to make videos that have value to me, and then the other half of that is I want to make videos that have value to other people. And the concept of value is highly overused. I mean, you hear it's kind of a buzzword, right? Hey, John, good to see you here. Good evening to you, sir. The concept of value is something that gets thrown around a lot, and for me, I can't necessarily control what other people find as being valuable, but I think that it has to start with me determining what I value and then putting that into the videos that I make. And if I can start by doing that and really truly look at the stuff that I find value in and create that I think that will in turn enable other people to figure out, if this is for them or not. And the people that will value the same things that I do are going to be able to benefit from that. And I think that ultimately that'll help me benefit from putting a little bit more concrete direction into the channel. So, it's no offense taken there, Rika. I think it's really funny that you say that, because so literally, okay, swear on my life, I just was at the Pilot gas station getting coffee. I'm not going to tell you how long it's been since I've done anything that remotely resembles like taking a shower. I went in the bathroom, I literally washed my hands and went like this in my hair so that I wouldn't look like I didn't put any effort in, because I feel a little bad when I get in front, of my audience and I come in here and I look like, I just rolled out of bed. And I've been almost literally tearing my hair out trying to figure out all of this stuff with kind of shifting, because the YouTube branding and channel stuff is very complicated, because there's a lot of things that I want to say, but it's also really hard to be concise about that and to be simple about that. And there's so many different things when you have something that's multifaceted that you want to present to the world. Sorry, I'm not talking about my hair in that statement. I mean, like, there is the creative component of storytelling and photography and video, but it's more than just like a technical component of that. It's like I also want to tell my stories of the people and the places I'm going and the things I'm doing and the adventures that I'm having, and kind of the uniting overarching thread of that being the desire to spend more time outdoors and to use the camera as a vehicle to connect with the outdoors, and really to connect with my daughter, and for us to connect with each other in the outdoors. That's really the one of the bigger threads I think that I'm starting to see in my own story, and I'm trying to figure out how to encapsulate that all in a way that makes sense to different people. Um, so anyways, yeah, tearing my hair out thinking about that, and I just ran like my hands through my hair. So I was like, I can't come in here looking like a complete crumb bum. Um, and I'm like thinking to myself, okay, I hope nobody notices that I am not really very well put together this evening. So the fact that it looks like I'm putting effort into my hair, hey, thank you. That's it worked. It worked. I was able to fool you, so that's a good thing. But yeah, so that's kind of what I've been wrestling with a little bit here, is like I don't want to do a YouTube channel, or I don't want to continue my YouTube channel in a way that only is like unidirectional, that is just like one thing. And at the same time, it's also hard to know how to really make stuff that is useful or that's valuable without being all over the place. And so, I wish I could come on here tonight and say that I have all these, these answers, but at the end of the day, I have probably more questions than I do answers. And, kind of the place from which I'm starting is really just to say, okay, um, what I really am trying to do is to get back to what this channel was supposed to be when I created it. It's not really about changing the channel, because it's not like I want to have a instructional or tutorial channel about, outdoor skills, as much as I want to have a channel that enables me to tell stories, and then also, still offer some insight and some behind the scenes in terms of the creative components there that are involved as well, that ultimately encourage other people to unplug and to go outside and to do more stuff. And then honestly, there are times too when I think about it and I feel like, is there really uh, is there a point to being on YouTube and trying to spread that message? Do people really need that? Or is that something where, um, trying to fish in a pond that's already fished out, and you're not really bringing anything of value to other people, because really the most valuable thing you could do is just stop cluttering up YouTube and just get out of the way, enjoy your life, and actually do things instead of having a camera in your hand all the time trying to document everything, and trying to figure out how to make that relevant to, to people that are searching just randomly for things or browsing on YouTube. Is that really even of value to anybody in the long run? I don't know. So yeah, a lot of complicated questions, and frankly, my life would probably be a lot easier if I just went out and bought the Sony A7 III and just reviewed the hell out of that and told everybody what I think about it. But kind of not super interested in that. Like, I haven't really been shooting much in the way of any new stuff this past week, because I have old stuff that I still have to edit, and I have to figure out what the hell that I'm doing with this channel. Um, and it's like, I know that I want to do something. I'm just kind of like at this weird impasse where I have like a block, and I don't know exactly what to do, and I don't know if I'm just too close to it, or what needs to happen, because I really feel like I've reached a point where I want to be serious about YouTube, like where I've kind of gone half in, and I'm looking at like planning the spring and the summer, where I'm going to have more free time once the semester is over with school. I'm going to have a little more free time to devote to this and say, okay, like what happens if I put in 20 to 30 hours a week solidly of really deliberately creating content that is targeted. I've kind of half-assed that up till this point, and the channel is still growing pretty well. So what could I accomplish if I really got after it? But at the same time, I don't want to get after it without really having a targeted idea of what the it is that I'm getting after, so that I don't wind up having to really go in one direction and really have to zig back hard in a different direction. I want to really take some time to really plan and to really think, so that the moves that I'm making ultimately wind up being linear, rather than circular, which, I've done a little bit of that, and I know that that can be really challenging. And when you don't know the direction that you're heading in, sometimes literally, when you're outdoors, and also figuratively when you're trying to navigate with a channel, you have to just stop and wait and be patient and say, okay, like, I'm not going to move forward until I have the answer, because there's sometimes that just moving forward for the sake of moving forward and just doing stuff for the sake of doing stuff, I think can be a little bit counterproductive. So I'm kind of, in that place where I'm really anxious to take some next steps, because I'm excited to be really buckling down and getting after it, but I'm also a little hesitant, because I want to make sure that I don't have to reshift and repivot and refocus my content for this channel a little bit down the way again. Hey Eddie, good to see you here. Yes, I kind of do want to be a punk rocker. I actually got a guitar. I got a guitar recently, started playing again, and that's been a lot of fun. But yeah, I have a lot of different things that I do. I like the music. I like fly tying and fly fishing and being outside. That's like the big thing. And I went back through the channel, and one of the videos I'm gonna because I want to share some of this process of, you know, the introspection that I've been putting into the channel, and kind of looking back at like what this channel has been since it started up till this point, as I, you know, ask my audience, ask you guys, and say, hey, look, like I'm kind of reshifting the focus a little bit. Are you going to come with me on this or not? Um, I went back and watched a lot of the videos that I made in the past, and there's some of those videos that just make me incredibly happy that I made them, and those are almost all videos that involve my family, and they involve, you know, the time that we spent outside together. And I think about it, and it's like, you know, I'm going to school for nursing because I don't want to have to make videos that are highly searchable, valuable, in air quotes, content. I want to make videos that actually are meaningful to me, and I want to push myself creatively, but I also want to be able to go back through my channel and have something to look at that I can hang my hat on and say, man, I'm really proud of this. Like, I'm really glad that I took the time to make this. Because there have definitely been a lot of videos that I've made where I had to put a lot of time into making them, and it was a pain in the moment, and I was like, oh hell, this is so, like, why am I even doing this? Nobody's even going to care. And a lot of those videos, you know, haven't gotten much in the way of airtime, you know, in terms of views and what have you. But I can look back at them and say, man, I'm really glad I made this video, especially with my daughter. You know, it's like, so many of those videos I remember when we were living in the trailer and stuff, um, you know, being able to go back and look at those videos that at the time that I was making them, I was like just trying to put out fires. You know, that's what I was doing as far as my daughter was concerned. I was just like, Lilo, just sit there, don't touch this, don't break that, don't, you know. And I was kind of impatient with her. But now going back and like looking at that, I wish that I had saved all of that raw footage just to be able to have those moments back again. And I mean, I am getting all like sappy and nostalgic, and she's not even 4. And you know, these are videos that are like a year and a half, 18 months old. I'm just like, oh man, how am I gonna, you know, cope with this stuff when she gets, you know, into middle school and God forbid goes to college. I mean, not God forbid, hopefully, you know, she will go to college and be a successful adult, but I'm like wringing my hands here trying to think about this stuff. And it's like the time that we put into capturing these moments because we want to have them to save, we save them, and no matter how good of a job we do saving them, it's still not the same thing, because when you watch them back, you still want that reality back, and what you've made is always going to be different and less than, some ways less than, maybe some ways more than the reality, but it's going to be different. It's not going to be that moment that you actually experienced. And so like going back through the channel, trying to figure out, okay, where do we go from here? What stories am I in the middle of right now that 5 years from now, my daughter and I, my family, my friends, you, my audience, like that, all of us, you know, that we're going to look back at and say, oh man, that was like really an important moment, but I didn't even know it because I was too busy worried about, you know, whether, you know, people were pissed off at me for dumping Fuji, you know. So it's like trying to kind of get outside of everything and think big picture, but also not forget about the details. That's a hard thing to do. So let me run back here through some of your comments, see what y'all are saying, because I know I'm getting, you know. Eddie says, I love the outdoors. Your outdoor stuff and films are great. I know they don't get the views they deserve. You know, I appreciate that, Eddie. I think that, you know, I'm tempted to agree with you that they don't get the views they deserve. But there's also a point to which I think about it, and it's like, you may know of a guy who is an outdoor vlogger, sort of outdoor, sort of video, kind of what I largely aspire to be. It was Travel Feels is the name of his channel, or was. Matti Hapoja, I think is his name. He's a Finnish dude, shoots a lot with Peter McKinnon. And I was watching his video about how he kind of he went from 2,000 subscribers, so 5,000 fewer subscribers than I have. In 1 year, he added 200,000 subscribers, which is more than 200,000. Mind blowing. Great channel. And like basically what he said was, there's not really a hack, there's not a secret. It's just be better, like get better, make better stuff. And I'm kind of thinking about that, and it's like, that's really useful, inspirational, hard truth. Because at the end of the day, if my outdoor stuff, like I believe that my outdoor content has potential, and I look at it and I'm happy to have kind of gotten there, but at the same time I look at it and I think I could do more, I could do better. The story part a lot of times is not very well developed, because a lot of times the story part, it's I'm lazy. And what I've realized is the biggest part of telling good stories, it really is planning, and it's hard work. It's not the stuff, it's really being willing to defer the pleasure of having that like freedom of experience in the outdoors that you want other people to have when they watch your video. You have to give that up for yourself to be able to get the shots and to be able to plan it out, to be able to be ahead of the action and behind the action and in the action at the right times and places, so that other people can sit and watch and have that experience. And it's a very unselfish thing. And what usually happens with most of my outdoor stuff is like I kind of want to give that experience to other people, but I can't really embrace letting go of it for myself. So I'm like, kind of half on the fence, and like I could do better. And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of my outdoor stuff hasn't really performed as well as some of my other things, because with camera reviews, I don't have like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I'm very solidly like trying to give something to other people, period. And I'm doing it for other people. I don't need to review the camera. Like I could go without that. I have no need for that. But I'm doing it completely for other people. And I think that while that isn't necessarily a technical breakdown of, the things that go into a story, I think that having that mindset changes the way that you approach things and makes it more more better. And I think that I haven't really done a great job of doing that in the past. And so that's something that I want to challenge myself to do better, is to really put more out there for other people instead of kind of half-assing it. And that's a hard thing for me to accept, because I there's part of me that thinks, is it really even worth that, to do that. Yeah, Thomas Heaton's stuff. I've looked at some of his work, and it's I'm kind of in a place where I'm looking at the work. I've been watching Sean Tucker, I think his name is. I've been watching some of his stuff as well. And, I'm in a weird place because I don't necessarily want to watch too much of what other creators are making. Because a lot of times when I'm in a thoughtful phase and I'm trying to come up with new things, I don't want to have any interference from or any addition from where I'm accidentally subconsciously borrowing from what other creators are doing. And the other part, and this may sound kind of over the top, but it gets really easy to compare yourself to other people, and I want to be really careful not to get like in sucked into that loophole where I start comparing myself to other people, because then that makes it really harder for me to take that and like, it creates more drag, more inertia as I'm trying to take this content I'm watching, be inspired to go out and create content. Instead, I wind up having more weight to carry because I feel less capable, less adequate, or discouraged or whatever. And that's something. So I try to moderate, and that's just for me personally, because I know I kind of know how much I can take in, and how much I can't. So I haven't spent a lot of time watching other YouTube creators for that reason. because I don't feel like I have a lot of momentum at the moment. Where if I have momentum and I'm doing my own thing and I'm like, this is my path and I'm executing the plan that I have, then I can kind of coast a little bit on my path and look over and say, okay, like here's what these guys are doing. That's really cool. And then be in a good place to borrow effectively without getting dragged down or without outright, plagiarizing or copying. But right now, I don't know if I'm in a great position to do that. Um, so yeah, King Yuzi, I think that's a good point. All you can do is try your hardest. Monday, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're saying there, Tomislav. Um, Yeah, I think you're right, King Yuzi. And I've been oddly enough, I've been kind of coming to this conclusion in a variety of different areas of my life. Is that all you can do is what works for you, and you got to just put yourself out there in the way that feels right. And I think that ultimately that's what all of this boils down to is just letting go, because there's a certain extent to which you can try really hard, but branding and channel analytics, a lot of that comes down to things that you can only know after the fact, at least for this type of work. I feel like when you're doing something that has a large creative component, because when you have a large creative component, you can't really predict and steer it. All you can do is kind of hang on for the ride and just let it go where it wants to. And so I really I agree with that. And yes, my channel is growing organically at the moment. And in some ways, it's almost once it starts to grow, you get spoiled, and you want to keep it growing, and that's kind of where I am right now. So yeah, it is growing, and I have, a pretty decent mix of where stuff is coming from, or where subscribers, not stuff, where subscribers are coming from. A lot of it's coming from the videos that I've been doing, like the camera review videos. But, the more I talk about this, and a lot of the comments that I've gotten are from people who enjoy the work that I do, and they enjoy more of the narrative stuff, and more of the people who are more engaged relate more to the narrative stuff. And I think that there's an extent to which I kind of have to get over the fear of kind of having some success in a niche that I didn't really mean to get into, which was camera reviews. I didn't mean to get into that. Like, I did because it was interesting to me at the moment, and that's what I've really done on this channel. And Casey Neistat says the same thing, so I don't know whether that's just pure coincidence or whether there might be something to that. But he always says that he just explores things that he finds interesting, and that's really what I've done for the most part on this channel. And now it's like, okay, I'm interested in something else that's kind of related and still relates to the content creation and video and stills, but relates to it in a slightly different way. So that's I think that, yeah. So your question, if it's a snowball effect where you get more subs and your channel grows faster, I think that there's a certain extent to which you have the ability to be a little bit more. Um, you have the ability to be a little bit more flexible in some of your narrative stuff, as your subs grow, because it shows YouTube that people are interested. Hey, good evening, Scott, and I appreciate that, AJ. Thank you. Um, Come for the camera reviews, stay for the the melange of everything else that I'm trying to figure out what that actually is. But I appreciate that, and I think a lot of it comes down to just committing and taking the risk. Because when I first started the camera review thing, like, it didn't just blow up and go wild right from the outset. It was just something that was very concrete. It was a path that was easy for me to follow, and I think that what I need to do is start thinking in terms of series that I can execute over the next 6 months, like a couple different series that I can have ongoing, and then stick with those and complete those series of videos on the channel. And right now, what I'm thinking about is one about just sort of um, about creative inspiration and just getting outside and finding adventure locally, because the position that I'm in right now, I'm not able to travel. I can't go to Iceland and photograph the waterfalls and hang out of helicopters and skydive out of, into the desert and stuff like that. I'd love to, but my life has changed a lot. Like this stuff, I'm not doing this stuff like at all. I mean, I have pictures of it, and I'm psyched on that, and I still, I'm interested in that, but I'm not doing that right now. I'm in nursing school. I got a kid. I got a, debt. I got, like life kind of, I got hit by the old age truck all of a sudden, and I got all these things going on. But I think that that's a position that a lot of people can relate to. And I want to share that process of like reinventing myself as, oddly, as a less adventurous adventure photographer, right? Like, what was normal for me was being in the mountains and, being in the desert and doing these like spectacular adventures. That was normal. And now it's like I have to reinvent myself because I can't do those types of adventures anymore. And so looking a little bit smaller, a little bit closer to home. And so the area that I live in right now, where I'm going to school, is upstate New York. And in upstate New York, there are just tremendous amounts of beautiful little streams and waterfalls, which is something that's dire, in the desert. There's really very little where I was living out in, the desert and mountains. A lot of places, the water is much more sparse. Out here in the East Coast, there's just tons of beautiful waterfalls. So I'm thinking about doing a project where I just try to photograph 100 waterfalls, and just do like ride-alongs basically with those, make some vlogs out of that. That could probably keep me busy for a summer, be some interesting, conversation about the creative process, and also some interesting narrative stuff, going in and kind of the experience of the hiking and the different surrounding areas, some good natural footage and photographs, I think. And then the other thing that I'm looking to probably make a series out of is just, the whole transition process of going from being in, having a lot more adventure available, and kind of downsizing the adventure and upsizing the experience, and really focusing more now on my relationship with my daughter in the outdoors. And instead of using adventure as a way for me to connect to everything and everyone else with my camera, really how my adventure now is it's different. Like, it's about trying to find out how I can connect my daughter with the outdoors, how I can give her the opportunity through appropriate adventures that are going to enable her to find her own path to going and doing the things that, whatever she chooses, but things that are bigger on her own when she's an adult, and helping her, you know, get a good basis. So sort of that, and I really don't want to do like family vlogging, because there's something like family vlogging is kind of a dirty word for me. Like, there's just something about family vlogging that I just don't like, because it just seems very, I just don't like it. I just don't like it at all. It seems very, knowing what it's like to actually try to shoot stuff with the family all the time. It just feels very disingenuous to me in most cases, and just a little bit like, I don't know how to say it other than I don't like it, and I don't want to do that. So I don't want to make the channel all about my daughter, but at the same time, like when we go out, I love just a little bit of the videos, like the video that I did about the G9, and the little trip to the bouncy house with her, and the trip going out to eat and goofing around. She enjoys being part of what I'm doing, and she loves the camera, and she loves being in front of the camera, and she's a ham bone, and then I love being able to have those little videos to look back on afterwards and be like, oh, this is, that day that we went out here, there. And she loves watching them too, and especially with the amount of time that we have to spend apart from each other, with me being out here for school. And it's like, I definitely want to have some part of the channel that deals with, or that works around the process of being a parent with a kid, and trying to get them involved, get your kid involved in the outdoors, and try to the struggle of being a parent, when you have ambitions to do things outdoors, but you have a child, and like you have to deal with that ambition because you want to go out and do big things, but at the same time you also really want your kid to have the same experience that you got to have, that put you in that place where you now love the outdoors and you've been shaped by your time in the outdoors and you've learned important lessons that you wouldn't have learned anywhere else, because you would reject people telling you these things. But when you go in the outdoors, and like, you learn very harsh lessons because you don't have a choice but to accept those, and you want your kid to have that, so you have to kind of wrestle with that. It's meaty philosophically, it's very meaty. And I love that, but that's one of the things that's scary from a YouTube perspective, because YouTube's algorithm does not love meaty philosophical concepts. But at the same time, the challenge is to take something that is philosophically meaty and not get so lost in the intellectual rigors of it that you are unable to make it aesthetically appealing and make it beautiful at the same time. So it's juggling a whole bunch of stuff, so you can understand why this may be, and honestly, maybe the answer for me is like, I need 3 or 4 different channels, right? But yeah, so we'll see. But the good news is that I'm still in here, still trying to figure it out, still being probably excessively vocal about my doubts and misgivings. And I should probably. It's funny, like I get comments from time to time where I got this one guy who commented on my video. Not the one where I said I was leaving Fuji, but one of the ones surrounding that, and he's like, he was really having a crisis of faith because I dumped Fuji, and he's like, there's something really melancholy about you, and I just don't get it, and I feel, really disillusioned because you were talking about how much you love Fuji, and now you're not shooting Fuji anymore. I'm just like, dude, like, come on. Like, I know that people want you to present like your best self all put together, and like you have everything, have tiger by the tail, but this is a real part of the process, is that you want to do anything creative, like you have to really spend a long time looking into the abyss to figure out what it is that what it is that you're going to do. Like they say the camera really looks both ways, and I think that's so true. That's so true. It's like, it's not as anything that you're going to do that's going to be worthwhile, you have to spend that time really looking internally and struggling with things and figuring out, and I think ultimately the thing I keep running across is that the biggest roadblock is my own fear. And I mean, that's nothing new from a creative standpoint. I think all of us that do anything creative know that, but like the fear of, what if I put all this time into it and just nobody cares? And that step, the biggest step, that first step that is fundamental to all other creative steps, is to be able to have that conviction within oneself to say, even if nobody else cares, I'm going to do this in a way that means something to me, and that if I'm the only one who appreciates this when it's all said and done, that that'll have to be enough. And that is kind of selfish, but at the same time, to create something that's going to have any value to other people, you have to do it that way. You have to be selfish, because if you're too busy like asking people for approval, doing live streams, asking people, hey, what do you think if I do this? Can I have your permission to do something different on my own channel? You're never gonna be able to create anything that takes a position or that has any ingenuity to it, because you're going to be too busy, like, looking around elsewhere. So yeah, it's a really tricky balancing act, that I'm trying to get a hold of here. So I appreciate you guys and your feedback, though, and your opinions. Like that does help. It's like it's therapeutic for me to kind of hear input from you guys, especially many of you, I think, really have been with this channel for a long time, and so some of my kind of where this has all come from and where it's all gone. And as I've been thinking about where it's come from, where it's going, I'm I got a couple of videos that I'm going to do about that, just that hopefully will help me kind of crystallize some of my thoughts too. Eddie says, I was nearly a snowball last Monday. One slip from setting an Olympic speed sliding record from 3,000 feet. Wow. Well, I'm glad that you didn't set any records there. I have been we haven't had a lot of snow here, although we had a bunch of snow and then it all kind of melted, so now everything is just like soup, and it's just muddy everywhere and just muddy and really ugly. So in a lot of ways, this is kind of a good time to be indoors and just kind of planning stuff, because in a couple of weeks, hopefully, things will dry out, weather warms up, leaves start opening up, and then there's going to be a lot to do. I have a lot of streams that I want to get to and start exploring locally in the area. I'm going to start, try to figure out an itinerary for some of the waterfalls that I want to shoot, and also, just getting out and scouting places that I'm going to be fishing this spring, and kind of some places that I want to take my daughter, get her situated, and get her fishing, so that we can go to some new places that we haven't been to before. And scouting and planning, that's something that I think makes a huge difference, regardless what the type of content is. It can be intimidating to plan stuff, because when you plan something, then you have a standard against which to fail. Whereas if you just go and do something off the cuff, then it's like, oh well, I don't have this, you know, I don't have anything standard to compare anything to, so it'll be good enough. And usually I found that the more planning I put in, it's scary to take that step, but it actually tends to work out much better for the content that I'm making. The other nice thing too is, I don't know if you guys know this, but YouTube has changed the app so that the chat will actually be visible for replays, which is pretty cool too. King Yuzu says, I had this entire week booked off from work so that I could film for my show reel. Snow ended up ruining nearly every day. That is incredibly frustrating. I haven't had anything ruined specifically by snow, but I know, if it's not snow, it's something. There's always something when you get really like, when you get fixed on a creative idea where you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to do it, this is when and where I'm going to do it, I'm going to do this thing, and you like make it solid, then almost always something happens that just completely impinges on that plan, and it's super irritating. I know. Just trying to work around family and stuff like that has given me has given me some insight into that, and weather too. I've been a little bit limited by the weather, just with everything being soggy. So, man, I feel for you there. But well, keep the camera on you. You never know. There may be an opportunity to get some good shots of different things, just kind of on the fly. And a lot of times, if you just shoot a whole bunch of stuff, even if it's not like dedicated shooting, even kind of going about whatever it is that you're doing wherever you are, you may have the opportunity to get some really great footage, that even if it's only a second or two, especially if you shoot everything into like in slow-mo, like if you shoot everything at like 60, like on the fly, like if you're just kind of carrying a camera with you randomly and then shooting everything at like 60 FPS in whatever resolution your camera will do that at, then a lot of times, even if you only get like 1 or 2 seconds of usable footage, you can slow that down, and kind of it enables you to salvage more stuff when you're shooting handheld on the fly. That's one thing that definitely has been really helpful to me. Yeah, I saw that time lapse, King Easy. That was really outstanding. I like that a lot. So yeah, very good. I'm glad that you were able to get that done at least, and that you got some planning done. And I think too that when you get planning done, like, it's very hard to think from a planning, kind of get outside of the story and think from a planning perspective when you're in there with a camera. So that if like you have two different selves, there's director self and then there's like shooter self, and if director self does a good job, and the two halves of your creative personality isolate themselves from each other, like your director self can really get all of that big picture stuff done, so that shooter self can be in there fully focused on shooting, and you don't have the distractions of trying to, think with the camera of like, okay, what's going to happen here and what's going to happen there, but you've really put in enough thought to have those questions answered, so that you're really just going out and executing once you have the camera, and you're not second guessing yourself and overshooting or undershooting stuff because, well, what if I need more or less? You know how much you need because you have it already planned out. So I think that's a really good thing. Um, yeah, the ambulance turned up and blocked half your shot. That's definitely Murphy's Law. Uh, totally. Minolta for Life asks, what mall did I go to in the G9 video? That was the Taunton, the Galleria, Silver City Galleria in Taunton, Massachusetts. Big chain of malls here in the Northeast. Really big and largely abandoned malls these days because nobody goes to the malls anymore. Thomas Love says snow over here too, but it's easy to work in the snow compared to the rain. That is generally pretty true. Especially, I've been enjoying my weather sealed kit a little bit with the GH5. That's been pretty fun. And I'm debating with like trying to. One of the things that I've been thinking about too, I'm looking at what I want to be doing a lot of this summer, what I'm interested in doing, just for sport outdoors, and thinking about, okay, what's the best way that I can capture this stuff. And fishing is one of the things I'm going to be doing a lot, and hiking. And I'm like imagining the process of shooting fishing with a larger camera, and it just seems like it's going to be a learning curve there. So I'm expecting to have a decent amount of hard work that's going to need to happen before I kind of get my rear end handed to me when I start shooting that stuff. It's going to be pretty hateful process. Because things can get complicated really quickly when you have hooks and lines and cameras and camera straps and you know, water and fish slime and slippery rocks and trails, and possibly a 3 or 4 year old in tow as well. Like, those are a lot of elements that can get really complicated. Selfie shot while fishing. Yeah, that's kind of the tricky bit of business, is being able to set up a shot that's not necessarily like selfie angle, but also to get good angles to be able to get some of the close-up stuff, because you kind of have to. Um, uh, oh, well, that's awesome, AJ. That's awesome. Yeah, um, that will keep me. That will keep me inspired to not just throw my camera and just kick my tripod into the water and just let it all go downstream and say the hell with it. Knowing that there's some of you guys have some experience with this, and some interest in seeing what comes of it. So yes, and Tomislav, if you have tips about that, I would definitely love to hear any of that. I will put those tips to good use. And King Yuzi, I may be forced to get yet another GoPro. I have a love and hate relationship with GoPros, mostly hate. I bought the very first GoPro, like, that came out in 2010, when I was like preparing to start living vertical, and I shot like a whole like cross country road trip on a GoPro, and I thought it was pretty cool until I actually got a real camera and realized all of the problems with GoPro in terms of just everything. Um, and then I got rid of that one. Then I got two more during the Project 365 in 2011. Then those just irritated me, so I got rid of them. And then I got another one uh, like a couple years ago when we were living in the trailer. And then I realized, why did I get this thing? I hate GoPros, so I got rid of it. And now this is going to be like round four. Um, Scott, or Eddie, I'm sorry, Scott's Wild Camper. I will take a look at the Sony X3000. I have no familiarity with action cams because, generally speaking, I just don't like them. And I know it's kind of snobby, but I'll own it. Like, that's just how I feel. I hate GoPros. I hate action cams. But being perfectly realistic, I think that might be a reasonable trade-off that I need to make in order to not go insane with rage and just like dump everything in the stream and just leave it there. So, and I want to avoid that outcome given the amount of money that I've put into my other camera. So if you know, suffering through the use of a GoPro, and I have actually been, the other thing too is with anything aquatic, you know, being able to get underwater shots would really be pretty huge. So, you know, that I think that could be a valid use case for the GoPro. Especially, I've been looking at like the Session, you know, the little Sessions or the Session Hero 5 or whatever it is, the one that it shoots 4K but only 30p, kind of like not the very highest iteration, but it's like 150 bucks on eBay, somewhere in that neighborhood. That's kind of what I'm thinking about getting. And then the other thing that I really am tempted to get, but I am not going to get for a while, if I earn it, if the channel grows in this direction, I will consider getting a drone. I haven't gotten a drone for climbing stuff because climbing wise, it's kind of hard to. I mean, climbing is just hard to shoot, generally speaking, anyways. But like, if you're shooting climbing, you're gonna make a scene and you're gonna irritate other people, and you're probably not gonna have much fun yourself. Hiking, I think, is a little bit more versatile, and I think the same goes for fishing. There's more opportunity to spread out, and hopefully, you know, you could do that in a way that's not disruptive. But I have to kind of try it out first before I really think about getting a drone for the stuff I'm going to be doing this summer. But I would like to get a drone, just to be able to add a little bit more variety, and honestly to be able to have some, you know, kind of have that perspective really that you can get just by putting a drone hovering there, so that you can do some fishing, you can get some shots, and like you get hands free basically without having to worry about balancing a tripod or having all your shots be like 1 foot off of the water type of thing, where you can have something that's got a little bit more diversity to the angles that you're capturing, and so that's something that I am considering, the Mavic Pro. I know they have some new ones out there. I've looked at the Spark. The Spark looks pretty cool, and I do shoot most of my stuff, or I do publish most everything. Hey, Mike, glad to have you here. Glad you caught the live stream. Welcome. Yeah, I do publish almost everything in HD. You know, full HD, not in you know, not in 4K. And one of the reasons why I want to be able to do that is because it's, you know, I can make use of like the high frame rate capture on the GH5, you know, the 180 frames per second and all that stuff. I think that, you know, you can use that without it being disruptive to the quality of the footage if you're exporting everything into you know, 1080 instead of 4K. So for the most part, that's the direction that I'm going with that stuff. And I've had some people ask me why I didn't, you know, why I don't use 4K. And honestly, like for publishing stuff online, 4K is just, the files are big, they're kind of clunky and hard to work with. It takes up a lot of data. And right now I have like 5 different projects that I need to like, because all the stuff that we've been talking about tonight with pivoting the channel, I don't expect that that's really going to happen fully within the next like 2 months is probably what I'm giving that to happen. I'm going to pivot slowly because I still have things that I have to like finish that I've been working on before I really get into full swing making videos for the new and improved Living Vertical channel. That's another thing too, and this is something that I'll throw out there. You know, I'm debating whether or not I want to change the channel name, because like I feel like I've worked really hard to build Living Vertical as a brand, and I think that there's enough plausible connectability to the outdoor stuff in the name, and it's also something that's pretty unique, and it has like a ring to it, and that's all my social media accounts are under that. But then at the same time I think about it and it's like, well, maybe I'd be better off if I put it under my name and just had my YouTube channel as like Steve Richert or whatever, because then that would, you know, a lot of people now know Living Vertical who don't have any idea who the hell I am. And then I feel like, you know, if I'm trying to approach somebody for creative work and I'm like, you know, that doesn't necessarily get me. I don't know, and I think I could be overthinking that too. So right now I'm probably going to just keep the channel name as it is because, you know, we'll see. we'll see what happens. But I'm tempted to change the channel name just because of the fact that, climbing is a much smaller part of my life now than it was when I started doing creative work. It's still a huge part of where I came from in terms of how I think about the outdoors and how I value the outdoors. So it's still something that's a part of me. But it's not something that is really a true reflection of what my content is about. But at the same time, it doesn't seem like it stopped people from subscribing to the channel thus far. It's not like people are emailing me frantically, like asking, hey, what the hell is up with your channel name? I don't know if I can subscribe. Although I have had people, comment and say, I was just about to subscribe, and then I saw your video that you stopped using Fuji cameras. I don't want to subscribe to your channel anymore. It's like, okay, like, here's me caring. Like, there's lots of other people that shoot Fuji that can afford Fuji and that don't, do filmmaking, and so they don't need to have whatever. Okay, not gonna rant about that, but it just blows my mind how, like, that happens sometimes. Eddie says my friend got a drone. The first time he used it, it flew away into the woods. He never got it back. Uh, that is horrible. That is a horrible story. Yeah, I don't want that to ever happen. What drone? If do you remember the specific kind of drone your friend was using? Was it a Mavic Pro, perchance? I know there are some. I've definitely heard of the fly-off stories, but I believe from what I've heard about the Mavic Pro, it has a pretty good track record. And I've actually used the Mavic Pro. One of my friends, Wes, who he's on the live stream every now and then. He let me borrow his at one point. We were out climbing together, and I was super impressed with the DJI 3. Yeah, I've heard that about the DJI drones, that they like to kind of do their own thing and leave the owners holding the bag. Um, yeah, that's scary. That's super scary. I don't know if I would. Um, like I said, I got to really think about it and make sure that I actually need it. Um, AJ, how do you like the Session 5? What are your thoughts on that? Because I think that's the one that I'm looking at getting in the um, GoPro line. That's the one that I'm thinking is Session 5. King Uzi, waterproof housing for the camera, film the fish getting the bait. Thought about that, although I don't know if that might not be more of an investment for the GH5. That could turn into like a whole thing unless I'm going to be like in deep water where I'm going to be diving. So gotta see about that. I'm open to the idea that I have. That I think that's going to probably be very useful. So what I'm anticipating right now is it's probably going to be the GH5 for like my bigger shots, and the Sony RX100 Mark IV for kind of, goofing around handheld shots, and then probably GoPro for like point of view shots and underwater shots. That's kind of what I've used that setup before, and it's a lot to manage, but I'm figuring to do 1 or 2 videos a week. Tomislav, the underwater bags, those, you trust those for underwater shots, huh? Because I don't know. I mean, I know like dry bags I've used when I was canyoneering, but those were strictly for storage when you're, going through a swim, not for shooting through the bags with any sort of quality. So I'd be interested to know about that. I know there's some waterproof housings that I've seen for the Sony RX100 line that I can't place it off the top of my head, but I want to say that I remember them being fairly affordable. Well, 5 meters underwater, yeah, I definitely won't be any more than like probably not even approaching 1 meter underwater with the water that I'm going to be fishing, because it's all like trout streams. So it's going to be like, waist deep max, maybe nothing that's going to be, I'm not going to be swimming, or, it's nothing that's going to be over my head, or really even up to my chest. Like, it's going to be kind of like knee deep water for the most part. So, and honestly, the amount of quality for what I need probably doesn't have to be like immaculate quality for the stream fishing, because a lot of this water, especially early in the season, it's going to be kind of, really the underwater shots are going to be mostly maybe some bugs and some, flora shots in the stream, and then also just kind of fairly close up ones. Um, Close up shots of the fish, kind of when you pull the fish in, assuming that I actually catch anything, and then letting the fish go again, assuming that fish are caught. There's going to be some of that. So yeah, it could get really complicated pretty quickly out there, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I gotta kind of plan some of the stuff out and figure out how to do it in a way that, got to find a good balance. That's really what it comes down to, because you want to have good shots and good quality and good aesthetics, but at the same time you also want to have a good time. And there's only so many cameras that you can juggle and still have a good time. So I gotta kind of find a good balance for that enables me to do a little bit of everything. Yeah, there is definitely a certain amount of bravery that is required to put any kind of valuable camera underwater, and that's another reason why I am pretty strongly leaning towards the GoPro, because I need to have something that I can mount in a variety of different places that's going to, that can go hands free. I need to have that, and I also, I need to have something that's not super expensive, and like $150 camera, I'll take some chances with getting that wet, because one of the few things in my belief that GoPro does really well is they do the underwater stuff pretty darn well, because their roots were in surfing and making yeah, casting the GoPro on the line. That's an interesting idea. I bet that probably could be done. I like that. I'll have to think about that. Of course, the only problem is, you go plopping a GoPro into the water, then that's going to spook the fish. You may as well throw like although the little one, you might be able to make it work. That would be kind of cool. Although actually that would be pretty interesting to, fish a GoPro and just watch the footage. If you could somehow keep it from spinning around and getting too crazy, and got it to just dead drift, like that could be pretty sweet, especially if you just happen to get some fish that were curious and checking it out when it just goes floating down the river. That would be pretty baller. Minolta for life. GoPro first camera was a film camera, believe it or not, it was sold on the Home Shopping Network. Yeah, I've heard that story. I actually, I will admit to listening to Tony and Chelsea Northrup's podcast on occasion, and they had one episode where they talked all about GoPro. It was kind of a bittersweet episode for me, because I had an experience buying some GoPro stock at one point. Actually, it was just bitter. It was a bitter experience. I bought a lot of GoPro stock thinking that this was going to be my, big play, my big foray entry into the world of trading. And I thought it made sense, because it's buy the stuff that that you understand, and so I was like, yeah, I know GoPro. I've used their stuff a lot. They're pretty good. People like them. And that was right before their sensor manufacturer had some kind of manufacturing issue. This is in 2015, I think. Their sensor manufacturer had some issues, and it messed up their release for some new products that they had, and there's a whole bunch of things that kind of cascaded in a very negative direction, and GoPro has not, to my knowledge, recovered financially as a company. So yeah, I learned the hard way about some of their financial foibles. But that episode was interesting, and it made a lot more sense too when I listened to that episode with where they were talking about how how all of that came together, how all that happened, and how the company was created, and how the guy Nick Woodson, I guess his name is, kind of how he was the sort of his roots in the way that he approached business, and how that kind of worked out for him and for GoPro as a company. So All right, well, we are 64 and a half minutes deep into this live stream, and I thank you guys for coming out and checking this out tonight. I appreciate the comments, the suggestions, the thoughts. I'm going to be back doing more of these live streams, as you know. Hopefully, I'm going to have more concrete information, and I have some videos that are going to be coming up in the next week or two as well. So, you'll be seeing that from me, hopefully something by the end of the week. I'm going to put out another video. Right now, I'm kind of down to one video a week, just trying to put a little bit more into those videos, a little bit more planning and a little bit more thought rather than just kind of cranking out videos, because that was one of the things I liked about doing camera reviews, is that camera reviews, you really don't require much in the way of B-roll. I mean, you can get some pretty good mileage with very little B-roll and legwork. That part of things was fun. But yeah, I got some stuff coming down the pipe for you guys in the next week. So if anybody has any other questions or comments, I would love to hear that now. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of wrap this up here. Appreciate you guys taking the time to watch. If you're not already subscribed, love to have you subscribe. And would love to hear from you in the comments too, even if you're watching this after the fact. My name is Steve Richert, and if we haven't met and you've made it all the way to the end of this video, congratulations. Thank you guys for taking the time out to participate and to share your thoughts in this live stream. Those of you that are still here watching, I always do this wrap up. It's sort of a, it's an act of pure optimism to really do that, because I don't think there are any people who ever see the end of this. I could put the most top secret information here, and nobody would ever get to it, right? Anyways, guys, you all have a good week. You'll be hearing, seeing more from me as I work through this process. If you have any ideas, thoughts, connect with me on social media. I could put that out there, because a lot of us aren't necessarily connected on social media. I know some of us are, but it's nice to be able to stay in touch on the Twitters and on Instagram at Living Vertical. Would love to see and hear from you all over there too. And you guys have a good week, and we will see you on the next episode of the Adventure Photo Show, or whatever I change the name of this new thing to, because it's probably not going to, it might be the Adventure Photo Show. I don't know. Gotta nail that down. But yeah, we'll get after it. See you guys next week. Bye.